about displacement, we focus on faraway countries where circumstance and natural disasters force people to leave their homes. Yet, we have the same problems right here in the U.S. In order to redefine refugees, we have to recast how we view things in our own backyard. Joining us to discuss American displacement is Erin Murphy, the Director of Engagement at YWCA Seattle, King Snohomish. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
I nailed Snohomish.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Good
Veronica
job.
was practicing Snohomish, like
well
Snohomish.
Hours.
Well done.
She did it.
So as we saw in the TakePart World Field segment, you know, when we think about the word displacement, we do think about places outside of the U.S., yet it's a major problem here. But why do you think we focus outside?
So I'm constantly encouraging people to look in their own backyards before looking far away, but I think it's easier for people to look far away because it's easy to help far away and feel satisfied by helping someone, but feel like it's safe, that it's not something that's going to happen to you. And so recognizing that displacement does happen here in the United States, and that a lot of the issues that the refugees you just spoke about are experiencing are happening right here in our backyard. And so I think people want to distance themselves because it feels scary that it actually could happen to them.
No, I mean, according to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, 34% of non-chronically homeless people are in families. 3% of chronically homeless people are in families. That's a third of the homeless subpopulation in the United States. So can you contextualize how displacement happens in the United States?
Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand that since the recent economic recession, the fastest growing homeless population is families. And so that is kids. And so the causes can really, really vary, but I think it's really helpful to understand that we're often talking about institutional barriers, not personal choices. And so that could look like you've lost your job and you can't find another one. Or perhaps your job doesn't pay you a living wage. Or maybe you suddenly have medical bills that you can't pay. Another one we often don't think about is natural disasters. We have hurricanes here, and that causes people to have to leave.
So you mentioned families, obviously a huge segment of this. What happens to the familial unit when they are suddenly displaced and without a home?
Yeah, we have 1.6 million kids experiencing homelessness in the United States, and here we boast to be one of the most developed nations. It's a big deal.
Can you just say that one more time, 1.6 million?
1.6 million on average every year.
Right?
Yes.
Children.
Yes, we need to feel motivated to do something. These are our kids. So what does that look like? It often isn't the image that most people think of when you hear homelessness. That means a lot of families are trying to survive living out of their cars. They are staying in hotels as long as they possibly can until the money runs out. Or it can look like couch surfing. You might technically have a roof over your head, but it's not stable.
It's assumed, you know, a lot of times that homelessness, you mentioned how families are often become homeless together. It's assumed homelessness is an individual issue. How does homelessness connect? I mean, it's so interconnected with so many other problems, from food insecurity to housing to prostitution even. Talk to me about some of those issues and other issues that are interconnected with homelessness.
Yeah, so one of the areas that I do a lot of work in is actually in the area of domestic violence, because a lot of people don't realize that domestic violence is one of the leading causes for family homelessness. And one of the reasons a lot of women or families don't leave are economic reasons. So that right there is an intersection. When it comes to human trafficking, that has become a very popular issue that people are motivated to do something about, which is great, but we haven't yet connected the dots between trafficking and homelessness, and it's absolutely there.
And there's big issues with children as well. There was like 1.2 million kids, you know, are homeless and going to school. I mean, that obviously that breaks up any kind of semblance of normalcy they might have in a home environment where they can kind of go home and reset. That's a big problem.
Just on that note, you just made me think how much of it is a problem where these people that we think are homeless just look like the rest of us. How do we identify those people?
And how do you help, in that situation?
Yeah. Well, I think schools are a really, really big piece of it, because even when a family is experiencing instability, their kids are in school. And so that could be the one system that provides stability to the entire family. But we need to better train and resource and support schools, from teachers to administrators, to not only recognize what homelessness looks like, but to be able to support those kids.
You know, I have volunteered at food banks before, and one of the things that I was shocked about is just the face of hunger, but I assume homelessness isn't too dissimilar from hunger.
Intersection.
You know, it can be people in suits. People, it's not the image that I would originally have in my mind of like the homeless person you see, you know, on Skid Row in LA. So what do you think we can do culturally to change the face of homelessness?
So I think we need to stop distancing ourselves. It is scary, the fact that somebody in a business suit most likely was middle class before they had to go to the food bank. And so I think we really need to look at it in the face. I think we need to talk more about it. And I think we need to vote. It is our policymakers that we put into power that decide the policies, that decide the funding streams. And once those people are empowered, we need to talk to them. So that means reaching out.
Real quick, you know, we hear a lot from politicians. We got to end chronic homelessness by 2015, 2016, 2020, whatever. Is it possible? Is it literally possible to end chronic homelessness in America?
Yes, and I would say homelessness, as we just discussed, can look differently. And so family homelessness is something that we very much talk about as needing to be something that is rare and brief and only one time. So that's not to say that it's never, ever going to happen again in the history of the world, but that we actually know the solutions and just need to be able to implement them.
Erin, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Erin.
For more on Erin and her work with the YWCA, visit ywcaworks.org. Displacement is an issue with so much political and cultural baggage. We've got more stories to redefine refugees after the break.
Thanks, Erin. God bless you.